So hello students, today the topic we have it is stoichiometry. Stoichiometry जो word है basically it is formed by the combination of two words of Greek. First is called stoichion, next metron. It means elements, it means measure. ठीक है, इससे मिलकर बना अपना stoichiometry. If we say its definition, it means it deals with the calculation of mass or volume of reactants and products involved involved in the reaction involved in the chemical reaction मीन्स जो केमिकल रिएक्शंस में हमारे पास रिएक्टेंट्स हैं जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं उनका मास या वॉल्यूम जो हम निकालते हैं बट रिमेंबर दैट बाय यूजिंग द केमिकल रिएक्शन स्पेशली ओ मैंने लिख दिया यहाँ पे it is in the chemical reaction. ओके तो हम मास या वॉल्यूम निकालते तो हैं बट ऑलवेज बाय द यूज ऑफ अ केमिकल रिएक्शन ये ध्यान रखना है ओके इफ वी से देयर आर सम जनरल रिएक्शंस जो नॉर्मली आपको कभी भी नहीं दी जाएंगी हो सकता है ठीक है लाइक सिंपल वी कैन से कार्बन with oxygen produces CO2. Next we can say mm, combustion of methane. So combustion of methane produces CO2 and H2O that we know. Okay, formation of ammonia. In the question, two types of values can be given or asked to you. Possibly, he may use or give to you number of moles sometime. So basically stoichiometry में क्या बोलते हैं ध्यान देना it is called stoichiometry coefficient the number that is placed before the element or compound in a chemical reaction it is called stoichiometric coefficient okay like here there is no number written here it means it is 1 mole it is also 1 mole means 1 mole of carbon combined with 1 mole of oxygen and produces 1 mole of CO2 in the second reaction that we have it is कुछ लिखा है यहाँ पे नहीं लिखा मतलब it means 1 mole of methane now take a look 2 लिखा है यहाँ देख रहे हैं आप it means 1 mole of methane react with 2 mole of oxygen and produces 1 mole of CO2 and 2 mole of water there. Then we can say again, इधर लिखा है कुछ नहीं लिखा है, मतलब यहाँ पर क्या हो जाएगा आप कह सकते हैं, it means 1 mole nitrogen react with 3 mole of hydrogen and producing 2 mole of ammonia. तो वो मोल्स के रूप में वैल्यू दे सकता है आपको, या तो पॉसिबल है, और इन द फॉर्म ऑफ मास, मास के फॉर्म में भी आपको वैल्यू मिल सकती है, वहाँ पॉसिबल है. तो डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द क्वेश्चन वी विल यूज द टर्म. If it is given in the moles, so we'll use moles there. If masses of the reactant products are given, then we use that term. Okay. So if we say mass, so we can say by seeing the chemical reaction, because 1 mole means 12 gram of carbon is combining 1 mole of O2 is 32 gram, because O2 means दो एटम है O के अपने पास, तो 16 into 2 32, and will produces 44 gram of CO2 that we know. GM कर देता हूँ मैं इसमें, ठीक है. सेम एज 1 मोल ऑफ मीथेन, इट मीन्स 16 gram of methane is reacting with 2 mole of O2. O2 का 1 मोल का मास 32 अपने देखा भी ऊपर, और उसके 2 मोल्स कितना हो जाएगा बेटा, 64 ग्राम. It is combining and producing the 44 gram of CO2 and 36 gram of water. Remember that when we are saying the chemical is involved there, so law of constant proportion, or you can say here law of conservation of mass, ये उसको स्पेशली फॉलो करेगा ऑलवेज. ठीक है. सेम एज वी कैन से हियर 28 gram of nitrogen is combining with 6 gram of hydrogen and producing 34 gram of ammonia there. Okay. So it is the basic, you can say, formula reactions which will not given to you generally. So you have to memorize these reactions. Okay. Now let's move here. So if we say stoichiometry, then we have two types of questions there. First, that we can say it is case 1 I am talking about now. When mass of reactant or product is given, it means किसी एक, या तो रिएक्टेंट का या प्रोडक्ट का, किसी एक का आपको मास दिया जाएगा केवल, और दूसरा मास आपसे पूछा जाएगा डायरेक्टली. मतलब सिंपल क्वेश्चन जो हो सकते हैं, बिल्कुल जैसे हम बात करते हैं. फाइंड द अमाउंट ऑफ CO2 produced by combustion of 36 gram of carbon. ओके. ये क्वेश्चन दिया है आपको. नाउ रिमेंबर दैट यहाँ पे हमें अगर देखें ध्यान से तो कह रहा है अमाउंट पूछा है CO2 का, और क्या बता रखा है कि कंबशन हो रहा है किसका, कार्बन का. तो यहाँ पे आपको सॉरी, यहाँ पे आपको इसने क्या दिया है, देखिए हिंट दिया रखा छोटा सा एक, क्या, दैट कार्बन is combining with oxygen. When we say combustion means reaction with O2, remember that, and producing CO2. Now because mass is given to us, so we will use initially mass of the substances given or asked to us. You can see mass of oxygen के regarding हमें कोई statement नहीं given है यहाँ पे question में. It means we will assume that amount of oxygen that is required is sufficiently present there. Okay. So 12 gram carbon produces 44 gram of CO2, that we know by this chemical reaction. Okay. Now take a look here. 36 gram of carbon is getting react with the oxygen. So what is the amount of CO2 is producing there? It is a question. So from this equation we will put our first value like 12 gram carbon if it is present there. So it is forming 44 gram of CO2. Now simply we are using the ratio proportion. 36 gram of carbon reacting there. So what is the amount of CO2? We are assuming X it is, okay? So now we have to find only this X term. So इंटू करना है केवल आपको तो. So 132 gram of CO2 is producing there. Next question. What amount of calcium is required to produce 284 gram of calcium oxide, calcium oxide on reaction with oxygen? Now it is the question we have. So take a look here. कैल्शियम का अमाउंट आपसे पूछा गया है which produces 284 gram of calcium oxide on the reaction with oxygen. Because amount of oxygen के regarding कोई आपको statement या value नहीं given है, it means we will assume कि जितना भी हमें चाहिए तो ऑक्सीजन पूरा मिल जाएगा sufficient amount में. Okay. So now we have to put first of all reaction there. And remember that as I told you that it always follows you can say the law of conservation of mass. Then we can apply the stoichiometry concept here. So first of all we have to balance this chemical reaction to solve this numerical. If you do not balance the reaction your answer will be wrong definitely. Okay. So first of all reaction लिखिए और उसको फटाफट पहले बैलेंस कर लीजिए सिंपल सा. रिएक्शन सिंपल मिलेंगी आपको जो बैलेंस कर सकते हैं आप लोग आपने सीखी होंगी. ठीक है. अगर नहीं सीखी है तो मैं एक वीडियो बना दूंगा उस पर भी तो आपको मैं उसमें बैलेंसिंग का टॉपिक बता दूंगा डेफिनेटली कुछ टाइम के बाद ही. ठीक है. अगर डाउट है तो आप मुझे बता दें मैं बता दूंगा कोई दिक्कत नहीं. सो नाउ बाय दिस केमिकल रिएक्शन वी नो 1 मोल कैल्शियम का मास कितना होता है 40. यहाँ कितना लिखा है 2 मोल. इट मीन्स इट इज 80 ग्राम and is combining with 32 gram of oxygen and producing 112 gram of CO definitely. Okay. Now we will not take this amount because we have to find the amount of calcium एंड अमाउंट ऑफ कैल्शियम ऑक्साइड इज गिवन टू अस। इट मीन्स हमें रिक्वायरमेंट है केवल इसकी और इसकी, इसको यूज नहीं करना अपने को भी कहीं भी, रिमेंबर दैट। ठीक है। सो नाउ सेम एज when 80 gram calcium is reacting with oxygen and it producing 112 gram of calcium oxide. So what is the amount of calcium we have to find which produces 284 gram of calcium oxide? So again we have to simply find the value of x. Oh, I- hmm, so x find करना है अपने को, so it will be 80 into 284 divided by 112. Okay. Now 4 to ja 8, 4 2 से चला जाएगा नहीं तो 4 2 जा 8, 4 8 जा 32। नाउ इन 4 7 से जाएगा ये, अभी वैल्यू जाएगी नहीं जा सकता, इसको आपको सॉल्व भी करना पड़ेगा अब तो। ठीक है, इसको आप सॉल्व कर लेंगे। आई थिंक लगभग ये वैल्यू आ जाएगी यहाँ पे। ठीक है, इट इज द आंसर। ओके, चलिए नेक्स्ट। ये केस वन था ध्यान रखना इस चीज का। नाउ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द केस second, when mass of both reactants are given. When the mass of both reactants are given, in that case, very first we have to find limiting reagent. Limiting reagent. So what is the limiting reagent? That reactant which is given in a small amount, due to which chemical reaction will stop and no further product will produced. It is called limiting reagent. लिमिटिंग reagent को समझने के लिए एक छोटा एग्जांपल है अपने पास। वी हैव 5 बॉयज, 10 गर्ल्स। हमें करानी है मैरिजेस, पर कंडीशन क्या है मैरिज की भाई? वन बॉय कैन मैरी विद ओनली वन गर्ल, ओके, सेम फॉर गर्ल्स आल्सो, एंड सेम सेक्स में मैरिज नहीं हो सकती है। ओके, so how many total marriages takes place? So definitely answer will be 5. 5 marriages will takes place. So 0 boys will left there and 5 girls will left there. Okay, so this one, the reactant which is completely consumed, means given in the small amount, is called limiting reagent or reactant also we can say. And the reactant which left unreacted, it is excess reagent or reactant we can say. Okay, so if we say define definition की अगर हम बात करें यहाँ पर limiting reagent की, so we can say that reactant which is given in a small amount it will consumed completely completely consume हो जाएगा due to which reaction will stop and no product will form then in chemical reaction. यानी केमिकल रिएक्शन जो अपने पास है वो स्टॉप हो जाएगी, प्रोडक्ट नहीं मिल पाएगा अपने को बिकॉज द रिएक्टेंट which is consumed completely, it is called limiting reagent. It is called limiting reagent. ओके, एक सिंपल क्वेश्चन है, जैसे मान लीजिए it is a chemical reaction given to us, और जो यहाँ पे आपको वैल्यूज गिवन कर रखी हैं दोनों की, गिवन है इट इज 3 मोल प्रेजेंट एंड इट इज 5 मोल प्रेजेंट है अपने पास. सो व्हाट इज द अमाउंट ऑफ सी will form there. Okay, so how we will find this? So we can see that 2 mole of A is reacting with 3 mole of B. Okay, so if we say we have 3 mole of A, so what is the amount of B is required? So it will be 4.5 you can say directly. ठीक है, now we can see it is the amount of B that is required. Okay, B required. Now take a look here. When all the 3 moles of A consumed completely, then the amount of B that is consuming only 4.5 mole. It means it will left because it is 5 mole given to us. So zero point 0.5 mole will left there. So it is the limiting reagent. So we can say A is limiting reagent here. Very first we have to find the limiting reagent basically, because the maximum amount of product is producing in the reaction, it will always depend on the mass of the limiting reagent given to us. So now as we know that A is the limiting reagent. So we can say if 2 mole of A is present, so it is producing 5 mole of C. So if 3 mole of A is reacting there, so the amount of C required or produced there, it will be 7.5 mole C formed. कितना बनेगा भाई C अपने पास? ओनली 7.5 मोल बन जाएगा। ये हो गया अपना आंसर डायरेक्टली। ठीक है, इसी पे मैं आपको एक दो क्वेश्चन और करा देता हूँ फटाफट से। इफ 60 gram of magnesium is reacting with 1 to 4 gram of oxygen, find the amount of MgO will formed. Okay, ये आपको गिवन किया गया है। Now, as I told you, if mass of both reactants are given to us, then first of all we have to find the limiting reagent. So first we will write the chemical reaction. So it is the balanced chemical equation we have now. You can see, okay. So it is 48 gram magnesium react with 32 gram of oxygen and will produces 80 gram of MgO there. Okay. Now we have given the mass both magnesium and oxygen there. So here we are assuming if 48 gram of magnesium is reacting with 32 gram of oxygen there. Now we are assuming that all the amount of magnesium has been consumed. So what is the amount of oxygen required there? So we will find X. So it will be 60 into 32 by 48. So it will be 8. सॉरी तो वैसे ही आ जाएगा ना, मैं तो उसको इंटू भी कर दिया साथ में। ओके, सो the value of X will be 40. It means the amount of oxygen required is only 40 gram, and the amount of oxygen given to us, it is 124 gram. It means the amount of oxygen will remain unreacted there. We can find it also, but we have to find the first one limiting reagent. So we can say by this it means the magnesium is completely consumed. Then only 40 gram oxygen required. So we can say magnesium is limiting reagent first of all. And we know which one is the limiting reagent. It is we can say very important for us because the maximum amount of product will form, it will depend upon the mass of limiting reagent we have. So that we know 48 gram of magnesium produces 80 gram of magnesium oxide. We have 60 gram of magnesium. Now we will put Y. Y is the amount of magnesium oxide finally formed there. Okay. So Y will be 60 into 80 and divide by 48. So the total amount of MgO will form, it will be 100 gram. एक क्वेश्चन और कहता हूँ मैं आप लोगों को, ठीक है, फिर टॉपिक आपका फिनिश हो जाएगा completely. Okay. What amount of H2O will produced if 96 gram of methane react with 380 gram of oxygen? ये है क्वेश्चन. So, as we know, very first point, we have to write the chemical reaction first of all. Then we have to balance the chemical reaction. And because mass is given to us, so we will put 16 gram of methane react with 64 gram of oxygen and 44 gram of CO2 and 36 gram of water there. Okay. Now, very first point, that we will find the limiting reagent. And how we will find it? Initially, by the chemical reaction, we can see that 16 gram of methane completely react with 64 gram of oxygen that we have written here. Okay. Now the same topic we are using ratio proportion. Okay. So now we are assuming there that we will find the mass of methane basically. So हमने उसको x मान लिया है, and the amount of oxygen that we are assuming is totally consumed. If 380 gram of oxygen totally consumed there, it means, so what will be the amount of methane is required? It is x now. Now we will find x value. So x will be 16 by 64. 4. Now take a look here. What does it mean? It means when all the amount of oxygen given to you is getting consumed, then the amount of methane required is only 95 gram. Okay, but the amount of methane given to us, it is 96 gram. It means 1 gram methane will remain unreacted. But 380 gram oxygen totally has been consumed now. It means oxygen is the limiting reagent. Yes or no? Let's assume that student is assuming that all the amount of methane is getting consumed. So what is the amount of oxygen required? भाई हो सकता है किसी ने ऐसे फाइंड करना चाहा हो, कोई इस तरह तो कर सकता है ना, पॉसिबल है। हम देखते हैं दोनों तरीके से क्या पॉसिबिलिटी है कि हमारे पास जो आता है अपना लिमिटिंग रीजन वो सेम आ रहा है या डिफरेंट आ रहा है। ओके, नाउ वी आर जस्ट चेकिंग, यू कैन से। नाउ व्हाट डज इट मीन? 16 gram of methane react completely with 64 gram of oxygen. So as 96 gram of methane is given to us, so we are using that all the amount of methane has been consumed. So what is the maximum, you can say, amount of oxygen that can react there? Okay, so now we will find y. So if we want to find y, it will be like this. ये वैल्यू आ रही है। It means when 96 gram of methane, means total methane getting consumed, then the amount of oxygen is required, it is 384 gram. But remember that we have only 380 gram of oxygen there. It means required amount is greater than the amount given to us. It means it is the limiting reagent. Okay, so again it is correct now. So now we know maximum amount of product that can be formed, it will depend upon the mass of the limiting reagent given to us. Okay, so by the chemical reaction that we can say, 64 gram oxygen produces 36 gram of water. Okay, but now we have 380 gram of oxygen which is present there. So Z, we are assuming the amount of water that will produce there. Okay, so we have to find this this Z value. So simple it is. तो चलिए इसको पहले 4 से कर लेते हैं। अभी इसको सॉल्व कर लेते हैं फटाफट से, ठीक है। So Z will be this one. It means amount of H2O formed, it will be 213.7 gram. ओके, इसमें आपको एक टॉपिक और थोड़ा बताता हूँ मैं, थोड़ा स्पेशल रहेगा मान लो आपके लिए। ध्यान रखो हमेशा, इसको नोट रखें करके अपने पास। टू फाइंड limiting reagent. Calculate number of moles given, divide by stoichiometry coefficient. Stoichiometry coefficient, ये आपको करना है कैलकुलेट। ठीक है। फॉर ऑल रिएक्टेंट्स, जितने भी हमारे को दिए हैं उस सबके यूज करेंगे हम लोग। ओके। एंड विच रिएक्टेंट हैव minimum value, it will be our limiting reagent, we can say. It will be limiting reagent. Okay. Like it is 2a plus 3b plus 4c is given to us and is producing 2d. Okay. And now given जो आपको दे रखे हैं moles, it is 3 mole, it is 5 mole, it is 7 mole. Okay. So now tell me which one is the limiting reagent directly. So as I told you, we will find the ratio, that is number of moles by the stoichiometry coefficient, same as number of moles by the stoichiometry coefficient, number of moles divided by stoichiometry coefficient. Now we have to solve this. So 1.5, it will be 1.67 आ जाएगा वैल्यू इससे, तो है ना। ऐसा कितना आ जाएगा, 4 बन जा 4, 4 7 से जाएगा ये, मतलब वैल्यू इससे बड़ी आने वाली है, मतलब ऑब्वियस है ना। ठीक है। सो नाउ यू कैन सी it is the minimum value we have, it means it is the limiting reagent we have. Okay. So it is the limiting reagent. So for the answer, 2 mole of A is producing 2 mole, sorry, हाँ ठीक है ना, 2 मोल से 2 मोल मिलता है अपने को, ये 2 मोल डी मिल रहा है। तो अभी कितना अपने पास, ये 3 मोल है ना, तो कितना मिलेगा, ये भी 3 मिल जाएगा डायरेक्टली, वी कैन से। सो दिस विल बी आवर आंसर डायरेक्ट। ओके। सो आई होप टॉपिक क्लियर हो गया होगा आपको। ओके। और कोई आपको अगर क्वेश्चन है इसके रिगार्डिंग, स्टोइकियोमेट्री टॉपिक के रिगार्डिंग, तो आप उसको मुझे भेजिए, मैं बता दूंगा आपको। ठीक है। चलिए। ओके। बाय, टेक केयर।